What's up everybody, Jason Boone here from PremiumBeat.com. Hope you're having a great day. Today I'm going to show you how you can create simple motion graphics in Adobe Premiere Pro. Now this tutorial, I wanted to make this because I've been in Premiere numerous times and I've been working on a project and it comes time to make a graphic asset, and sometimes it's a simple motion graphics asset, and I'll always jump into After Effects, and it can become a little tedious working with multiple software applications, and oftentimes I find myself just wanting to stay in Premiere and create everything within Premiere, do all my audio mixing, creating the graphics. I want to do everything within one program. So that's why I wanted to create this tutorial to show you what exactly you can do in Premiere when it comes to motion graphics, because I think most people are probably unaware of the capabilities that Premiere Pro really has when it comes to creating graphics, working with the title designer and the things that you can do with motion graphics. So I'm going to take you through this project and we'll be creating a simple title. Let me show you what I'll be creating here. Simple title with a simple kind of transition and basic animation. So let's get started. I'm going to show you how to create this motion graphics title in 3 simple steps. And if you look here, there's just 2 simple graphic elements, which are the text, and then I created a vinyl record in the background here. It's kind of blurred out and the opacity is way down. So I'll be showing you in the first step how to design the graphic elements in Premiere, and then for the second step I'm going to show you how to add effects to it so that we can transition in, and then the third step I'm going to show you how you can do some final touches with animation and keyframing to bring it to life completely. So let's get started here. For the first step, let's go to our other sequence here. For the first step, let's go to the title designer. So if you click new item, title, that'll launch the new title dialog box here. So we're going to create the record first. Let's click OK. Now the title designer is one of the tools that I think is really kind of underestimated. Now if you look here, we have all kinds of different title properties and things we can do here, but one thing that I never see people use are these shape tools over here. So I'm going to show you how you can quickly create a record with just this shape tool here. And if you've ever worked in After Effects and you've worked with shapes, you know how powerful the shape tool is. So I'm going to hold shift here and create a new ellipse, really small. This is going to be the center whole of our record, and now all I need to do is create 2 outer strokes to create this vinyl record look. So if you go over here, let me close these, there's just so much going on over here. If you look here for title properties, there's a section called strokes, and there's inner and outer strokes. So I'm going to add 2 outer strokes. So let me add 1 first, and then under the outer stroke information here, I can enlarge the size. Probably want it to be about 50 maybe. Let's do 60. See how that looks. That's a good starting point. And then we'll add a second. Well, let's change the color here. Got our nice premium beat color. And let's add another outer stroke. You go down here. And there we go. We've got the start of what looks like a vinyl record. So now we can center it up with the 2 center buttons here. And actually, I'm going to add a quick sheen. If you look down here, there's a section called sheen and texture. So let's go ahead and add a sheen to our second outer stroke. And then if you open that up, we can enlarge the size, change the opacity down just a little bit, and then change the angle. And then boom, we've got a down and dirty graphic that once we blur it out and change the opacity, it's gonna look pretty good. And we may need to change that center. Let's change the actual fill color to pure white if it's not already. Okay, it's not, so we'll change that. Click OK. Okay, so there we have our record now. So let's go ahead and close this. Now we want to just create our music text. So we'll go down again and create new title. And I'm creating these as separate title elements or title layers because I want to manipulate them separately. It makes it easier. Sometimes you'll want to create both in the same title layer. Depends on how you're working. So this will be a simple text. So I'm typing the word music. I'm going to change the color to our lovely premium beat color. Let's change the font to something fancy looking here. There we go. And we're gonna bring the size up. Okay, that's good right there. And then we'll go ahead and center it. And there, now we have our two graphics here, music and vinyl. Let's close this. So we have our two graphics here, music and vinyl. And now I can go to step 2. So let's bring these into our sequence here. And I'm gonna put our record on the bottom and our music on the top. And I've also added a third layer. If you look down here, this is just a simple matte white background. Okay, so it looks pretty terrible right now. So I can make some quick changes to the design here to make it pop really quick. Now, just be aware that you can make changes here with the actual layers in your video effects panel to the properties here, or you can edit and adjust properties here. So you could change the opacity in the title designer, or you can change the opacity under video effects for the actual layer here. So there's, 6 ways to do the same thing as usual. So now what I want to do is I want to enlarge this record in the background. I want to blur it out, and I want to lower the opacity. So first I'll scale it up. I want to scale it up to about there. And now I want to lower the opacity. So if we go down to opacity, let's turn it down to say 65 and see how that looks. Looks okay, but that's really kind of blending in there. But that's why we will blur this out. So now for step 2 is we're going to add effects. So we've got a little bit of our design going here. Still looks pretty awful. So we want to go over here to video effects. And first thing we want to do is we want to blur out that record. So if we do a quick just gouge and blur and drop it on the layer, then we start to blur that out to say 45%. Yeah, say 45. That's starting to look a little bit better. Now our opacity is still too high. It's kind of blending in there. So let's bring it down to like 45 or 50 so we can actually see our text. Okay, there we go. So now let's add effects to, we want this to animate in as our reference. I'm going to click back to our reference here, and you can see it. The record does this kind of circle spin in, and then the text starts to come in halfway through with like a blinds wipe. So those are 2 transitions that I added. So let me show you how we can do that here. So if we go over here, let me enlarge this a little bit more. Whoops. So it's at 200. Let's take it to 300 and see how that looks. Then we'll center it up. Again, I can adjust that in here, or I can adjust it here with the properties. Okay, so now we want to add some effects here. So let's go back here. And the first one, if you go under video effects, there's a transition section here. If you open that up, now these are different from these video transitions here. These video transitions down here are kind of stock, and they're going to slap to the end of your clips here, whereas these you're going to have to keyframe them. So let's go ahead and grab our radial wipe, and what our radial wipe is going to do is go on our record down here. So we're going to put that on the record layer, and then we're going to go to the effect controls panel for this specific layer. And again, there's just so much going on here. Let's close out all this stuff. So here's our radial wipe effect, and if you look down here it says transition, and if we grab that and start to move it, you're going to see that our graphics starts to spin as well, or we get our radial effect, but we're noticing it's not centered up. So let's see what we can do here. I'll just kind of position that. Okay, so there we go. Now we can adjust the feather a little bit. If we adjust the feather on the edges here, it'll give us kind of more of a motion blur effect. There we go. Okay, so now we just need to add some keyframes to our transition. So we want it to start or end at 0. So we'll add a keyframe, and then we'll drag this keyframe out to maybe the, let's say 1 second mark. Yeah, so we want that transition in to be 1 second. Now to begin the transition, we just turn the transition to 100. Now let's play it back. And there we have our transition. Again, I don't know why it's not automatically centered, but I do not have time to look into that. Okay, so next we want our text to animate in. And if you look down here, we have Venetian blinds. So let's go ahead and drop Venetian blinds on the music layer, grab the music layer, and then we grab our transition and let's see what happens here. Okay, so you can see as I drag here, the effect takes place. So same thing, we're gonna wanna add a keyframe and we want it to end at about 1 second. So grab that keyframe, but we don't want our animation to begin until right about the midpoint here when the record is about halfway in. So we can drag here, 200, and then let's see here. So there we go, we have our transition in for both of the graphic layers. Now for our final step, for step 3, we just want to fine tune the animation. We want to add a couple of keyframes to a couple of different properties, and it's really subtle changes. I like motion graphics and animations that are really simple and really subtle. So what we'll do here is we're going to soften up this, we're going to ease up the animations of our transitions, and we're going to add a quick scaling effect. We're going to scale the text up, which is going to make it seem like it's coming towards the viewer, and we're going to scale the record down, which is going to give it the look that it's moving away from the viewer. So it's just overall going to give some movement. So first, let's fine tune these animations, these transition ins. So we'll go to our keyframe and select them. We're going to select ease out on the first keyframe, and then we're going to select ease in on the last keyframe. And this just gives us smoother transition, and we're going to do that for both layers here. Ease out and ease in. You're going to see it kind of change time here because you're changing the temporal, you're changing the time here. It softens that, it slows down your, when it reaches the out point, it kind of slows the animation down, and right at the beginning it kind of slows, it's a slow ramp up in speed. So there we go, we've changed our animations there. Now we want to do our scaling effect. So first we'll select the music layer, go to motion, select scale, and then we want it to end at 100. So we'll take that to the final frame, and then we're gonna take it down to maybe 90. So it's subtle. Then we'll take that keyframe to the beginning. Now we'll go to our record, and we want that to scale down. So we'll have it scale down from 150 to 140. Okay, now let's have a look at it. There you go. See, it's very subtle, but there's some movement there. Okay, so there you have it. We have our simple motion graphics title here, and that we created in Premiere Pro. Now, if you're a designer, you can, obviously create something that looks way better than what I just created here. And the possibilities are really limitless. When you look at all the effects up here in the video effects panel, you can create any kind of animation you want. And with the title designer, you can go pretty wild with your design and customization of your graphical elements. Well, I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. Be sure to check out PremiumBeat for high quality, royalty-free music and sound effects for all your media and video projects.